patient on the couch, the therapist sitting behind the couch, and that was the extension of its utility. Reich said the insights that we've gleaned in psychoanalysis should be brought to the community at large because they can be very helpful. And so he started a clinic for adolescents in which he talked about birth control, in which he talked about sexual hygiene, in which he talked about the rearing of children. And these became popular, and he became a popular lecturer to the community, and his clinics spread. And this caused unease in the psychiatric community, because this was going beyond where the psychiatric community wanted to go. Because of his popularity that was growing, and because Reich was a political animal. He had first joined the Social Democratic Party, became unhappy with it, and ultimately joined the Communist Party. And the Soviets saw a use for Reich being a member of the party and gaining popularity in the community. So in 1929, they invited him to tour the Soviet Union, to visit schools, hospitals, wherever he wanted to go. He toured for a number of months, came back totally dismayed by what he saw, and wrote his book, The Mass Psychology of Fascism, in which he referred to the Soviet Union as Red Fascism. This caused him to become one of the prime targets of Soviet hostility. So he already had made enemies of some in the psychiatric community, and now he had a bigger enemy, the Soviet Union. In the period between 1946 and 1947, there were articles written. The first was by I remember the first name, Frederick. Huh?
Werther. Frederick
Werther, who was a prominent psychiatrist. He wrote a review of mass psychology, which was titled Nuttier Than a Fruitcake. And in that article, he called Reich a psycho-fascist, which is almost like one kid being called fascist and the kid arguing with him, calling him a fascist. Psycho-fascist is not in the DSM-4. It's a category that hasn't been recognized yet in the classification of psychiatric disorders. And from what I've learned, it's not in DSM-5 either, which is still not out. Following Werther's article, two articles were written by a lady named Mildred E.D. Brady. The first in Fortune magazine, which she called The New Cult of Sex and Anarchy. And then a few months later, she wrote practically the same article in New Republic magazine, and she wrote, that Reich was the head of a vice racket, a sexual cult, and that what he was espousing was a pornographic form using psychiatric principles of emotional yearning. I don't know what the hell it means, but he was a case of paranoia and delirium, and he promised to cure all diseases. This article caused consternation in the media circles because there was such great material to write about. So for years thereafter, newspapers and magazines published this same material over and over again. None of it depended on anybody reading Reich. It all depended on Mildred E.D. Brady's article. Mildred E.D. Brady had a nice relationship with the Food and Drug Administration. In the early days of the Food and Drug Administration, it had gone through some tough periods, and Mildred E.D. Brady wrote articles in defense of the FDA. So they owed her. And the year that her articles were published, an investigator from the FDA came to see Reich in Maine. And he said that he had come to inspect the place because of the Brady article. There was no doubt about it. And from that point on, periodically, investigators from the FDA came to Reich's place in Rangeley, Maine for inspections. And it wasn't until about 10 years after the initial inspection that the FDA formulated a complaint presented to the government about Reich. By the way, I forgot to say that Mildred E.D. Brady also said that there should be a license prepared for people who are scientifically pestilential, the way Reich was, and that there had to be some new government agency formed to stop people like Reich. Well, 10 years later there was. The FDA prepared a complaint against Reich, including all of the Mildred E.D. Brady material. There was no attempt to investigate Reich's side of the matter. The complaint claimed that Reich claimed that it could cure all diseases, that he had invented a device in which people sat. The device was about the size of a telephone booth, in which people sat and their libido was stimulated. And Reich was presented with this complaint. Despite